Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today we're going to be getting back on the Dodge M37 build, and we're going to be trying to get this thing finished up. We have the canvas top to make, the bumper, the bumperettes, some kind of finish up work around here, and lots of little details to add. Alright, so let's get started. So the nice thing about these figures that I was using, they're very articulated, and there's really only one thing you have to do in order to get them to sit right inside the truck, and that's just take a little bit off of the top of their leg, and it just allows the leg to extend up a little bit higher and kind of sit in the seat properly. So this is a 3D printed part I designed, and it's a 24 volt master switch for controlling the lights. So to put the gauges on, I just printed off on paper the gauges, put them on some thin styrene, and then cut them out and put a little bit of clear coat on top to protect the paper. The majority of the items on the dash are green, but there are a few items that are kind of black, black knobs and switches, the steering wheel. So just adding those couple little details in black. So with a small amount like this, I tend to just use a paintbrush instead of trying to mask that off and paint it. It tends to go a little bit quicker. So these were the electric wiper motors, and so they're red plastic, and they have a black base with a kind of a gold metallic, almost anodized looking metal plate. And so what I ended up doing was taking a little bit of gold and a little bit of some kind of aluminum metal, and then kind of mixed it together, but didn't mix it together perfectly. And so that way you got that kind of gold and yellowy, silver looking finish. And it actually did turn out pretty good. So I really do like these mirrors. I mean, they're a little bit on the small side, but they make up for it by being rubber, and they will not break on the trail, which is nice. So just using a little bit of this fabric, it's kind of, I guess, kind of like a little ribbon, and so I'm just gluing that in both sides and using essentially like a ring terminal. I think it came off of a necklace or some kind of cheap jewelry you can get at Hobby Lobby, and make it kind of work like a strap. As you can see, I just basically take that little ring, bend it into shape so it's not perfectly round, and then glue that top piece back on itself, insert the bottom piece, and then do the same, glue it back on itself, and it really does give a nice look. So we have all the details finished up on the cab here, and I'm very excited about how this turned out. The little jerry can with the tie down straps. The mirrors, I have the flexible mirrors, which are nice, because they end up getting broken off typically, so those are going to work really well. We've got the glass in. These little wiper motors, I think what I understand about their aftermarket electric wiper motors that replace a vacuum wiper motor, which generally doesn't work very well. The interior is all in. Added the gauges and the 24 volt switch that I 3D printed on the dash. Got the driver, everything's permanently mounted, and it looks really good. Now there are still some things I have to do. We have to get the the lettering on here, the star on the door and the hood. There's a bunch of things that go on. I still need to make the actual windshield wipers. I was trying to find some, and I think I'm just going to have to make them. Ready to move on to finish up the bed. And then after that, we'll start to get into some of the making the bumpers, bumperettes, and sliders. All right, so let's get to that. So the one nice thing about this green camo paint is it is a matte, and so it's not quite like primer, but it's not far from it. So here I'm just basically filling in all the little voids and imperfections I had on the body. So these are also little 3D printed parts I designed, and they're made to hold the axial light. So I basically just have a little nub that's used to hold on to the tree when it's printed, and that nub also is an alignment pin, so give it a good positioning in there. So you drill a small hole and just drop that little bit of glue in it, and it really worked out really well. Just a lot of effort trying to get the placement just right, and you're going off of pictures and stuff, so you're kind of eyeballing where things line up with, and you can get as close as possible. So the gas filler neck, I also designed 3D printed that, and so I set it up so that it would basically drill right through the body and into the floor, and then you could glue that into place. So just take and just kind of hand bend this little piece of thin styrene around, and just keep chopping away at it little bits by bits until you get it to a pretty decent shape, and then just glue it into place. Here you can see I'm popping in all those little axial lights, and they're just press fit in the way they're designed to hold that. Now for the tools, I decided to do a little bit of glue and straps to hold that in place. The glue mostly holds it in place, but technically the straps are around there as well. So this is the same strap material that was used on the jerry can, and also just some little fixings from the jewelry supply aisle. So it does have a specific order this has to go in, and so the bottom is the pickaxe handle, and that's separated from the pickaxe, and then the regular axe goes into a blade holder, and then kind of a piece of metal that rests underneath, and then the shovel goes all up over the top. It took me a little while to look at a couple different tool storage boxes to kind of figure that out. One of the things I figured out is that they don't always go back in the right way, so basically I just looked for the ones that looked like they were the most accurate, and I went with that. So for the taillights, they are a little bit different than what you would have in the factory, but these are pretty much a direct replica of what the owner has on his real M37. To me, it looks like somebody made these from scratch, but it's just basically a light box that I put in with some lights and LEDs behind it. So the chain is back to the jewelry section at Hobby Lobby. It's a cheap necklace, the little, I think, lobster claw clasp, some fixings, and just bend them around and kind of glue everything in place. Okay, so the bed is pretty much finished up. Much like the cab, there's still a little small things here and there I need to get to. One of them is the little handles that go on these doors here. They're 3D printed and they're in the mail. Just paint those up, glue them on. It's pretty easy there. I have the fuel filler, and that goes in and has the little cover on the inside. And so this is a 3D printed part I designed, and this is just a piece of styrene that I bent and glued in place. I also have the little chains that would hold the tailgate when it's down, and so those it's just basically a necklace with some different fixings and basically hooked onto little styrene pieces I've glued on there. You see I've attached all of the tools to the tool rack in the back, and used the same strap that was used on the jerry can to strap these down. The tail lights, I don't think these are military stock. I think somebody must have made these before the owner bought it, but that's pretty much what they look like. It's just some metal and some simple round tail lights, but they actually do look pretty good, and I think they fit well. And then these little pieces are the axial lenses. These are the yellow, these are the clear that I painted red, and they're all fitted in these little houses that I 3D printed, and they just glue onto the side. The nice thing about it is that it's the exact same press fit that the little threaded piece which these originally are intended for. It's the same press fit in there, so once I get these painted, I don't have to worry about glue. I just press them in really hard and they snap into place, and so that turned out really nice. The just like the cab, I still have some stickers to put on here, like tire pressure, and there's some U.S. Army military labeling on the back, some cautions around the fuel tank, but I'll just get those stencils on and airbrush that in when I get that to that part. But for this, I think we're done, and now I think we need to get on to making the bumpers and bumperettes and the sliders. Alright, so let's see if we can get to that. So the final piece for the, I guess, topper support structure is this. It's a kind of a half round shape that's tapered down almost like to a cone. And so what it does is it gives a little bit of shape right above the driver's door and kind of transitions it up to a rounded shape for the canvas top. And so what I ended up doing here was I just took some PVC pipe and vacuum formed styrene around it to give us this thinner shape, and essentially I'm just cutting that down, as you can see, to give me that kind of wedged shape. So to attach it to the actual metal itself, I took a piece of styrene and basically made an angle on that, glued that together, and then stripped the paint down to the metal, scuffed it up a bit, and then used super glue, and that should hold just fine. So here is a pattern making for the canvas top. It's what it looks like. It's masking tape. You wrap it around, you get the shape you want, and then you cut it apart, and that's your template. I didn't have a whole lot of options for colors. I ended up liking the color when I got done. It's not a perfect match, but I think it does look really well to have a little bit of contrast to it. I played around with a couple different ways to attach this. The first was like little hook and loop. I ended up abandoning that and just going with some E6000. So one of the more fun parts for me is the wiring. Put the LEDs, and it's just a simple LED calculator, some resistors, a whole bunch of wire, and a little bit of time and solder, and you can end up with some pretty nice stuff. So So the front is going to be a warm white LED, and the rear is going to be just a red LED. So here I have a little test rig up on my workbench that supplies the correct voltage. So one of the things I've started doing is to, when I get done with the lights, to wrap all the cabling and stuff that's running through the car, the wire, with a Tesa tape or a friction tape. And it does a couple of things. One, it hides it, it's black. It's a nice look, but it also is a really good place for you to be able to glue the tape down to the body, and you don't have to use quite so much glue as you would if you were trying to hold down the just bare wire. So I ended up using some tabs that I got from Scale Metal Supplies, and they're very handy. They're laser cut, and it just saves you the time for making these little small pieces. Essentially what they do is they bolt to the side of the chassis where you would bolt in the skid plate, and it gives you some holes where you can put in some metal tubing. And so what I'm basically doing here is putting in some stainless steel metal tubing I have there, just using my bender to bend a shape around for the side steps there. So to get the thing soldered up without damaging the model or taking the thing whole way apart, I've just used a spare chassis rail I had laying around. So in the end, what it does, it gives you a look of a diamond plate box structure, but really what it is, it's a nice skid plate that just has some decorative diamond plate on top. So now, kind of getting down to the bumpers, I thought about doing this with a flat sheet metal, and then taking a paper stock and making a pattern and bending that around. The more I started thinking about it, I ended up going with a thin wall 3/4 inch box tubing. I was able to get what I needed pretty quick and easy. So to attach it to the front of the truck, I use a really thick gauge metal, silver soldered that to the bottom, and what I'll be able to do is use some spacers to go right up into the holes where you would normally put the locking screws in to hold the bumper. Okay, so here's it's a little bit of a pain here to clearance out this hole, because you ever use these little fiber discs, and they just go so quick, and they make just an absolute mess of dust everywhere. But it's just about the best way you can do that. So I'm just cutting that down and getting as close as possible on the sides, and I'll come back with a smaller bit and just kind of work my way around and get that opened up. So here you can see how I bend that end down. So I just made a little bit of, I think it's a couple millimeters in between, make a couple cuts, and then you bend it around, fill it back in with silver solder, and you're good to go. So I am getting really close to this thing being finished. So starting the front, I have the front bumper, and it's just a piece of thin gauge square tubing that I'm able to cut down and bend. You can see I put the letters. I have a Fairlead, the letters on the side, as you can see that done. And all this was supplied by the customer to match up with his. vehicle. You know, the nice canvas top, and you know, a lot of the other details around here. Now, what I'm going to be having to focus on next is getting the bumperettes in the back, and then probably just a couple little minor details here and there, and that should be getting this thing wrapped up. So you know, really excited to have this thing finished, so let's get to that. So the back doesn't really have bumpers. They're called bumperettes, and they're essentially just these two small pieces that go on either side, and I was really nervous about how I was going to make those. And so what I decided to do was take some thin metal I had, and I cut a strip out, and I just basically just took a piece of tubing that I had, put it in the vise, and then hand formed that piece around, and it was so simple. I was really making a lot to do about this, and it was a lot easier than I thought. What I'm doing is basically just taking again some thicker steel here, and it's like, I forget what gauge this is, but it's very thick for this scale of truck, and essentially I'm silver soldering another piece to it that goes across, and then I can just basically silver solder those bumperettes to it. What you see at the end of it is just the bumperettes. So I always try to add a little extra something to a build here that, you know, that I think is kind of neat and they may not have asked for or even thought of. And so one is I had this military style hitch laying around, so I decided to throw that on there. So here you can see how that plate just screws right into the regular holes for where the bumper would go on to, and then it holds those bumperettes just in the right spot. Alright, so this has been a long and fun project, but it's finally come to an end. I've finished up with all the details on this Dodge M37. I'm just extremely happy with it. Probably one of my most detailed trucks I've built so far. The last thing I did was to replace the fairlead winch in the front, and that pretty much wrapped it all up. Now you might be able to see a little bit of dirt on the tires. I actually took it out and did a test drive. The thing did really well. So, just kind of look from the front to back. There's lots of details. I mean, the thing that was the most important is that he has a M37, and he wanted all of the emblems and the stickers and everything to be as close as possible to what he has, and I think we've accomplished that. Down to the way we've colored in the tools in the back, just like the way he has his on the back. I even added a little scale hitch on here. And got the bumperettes, and just lots of details. So extremely happy with this. There's a lot of other fun projects coming up, a lot of cool things on the channel. Until then, we'll see you in the rocks.